what if the ancient concept of the soul, reincarnation, karma, what if all of that operates on the exact same architectural principles as the cryptographic encryption that is literally protecting your digital bank account right
I
now?
mean, it sounds completely wild, right? It's like the inciting incident of some cyberpunk science fiction novel.
Yeah,
But
totally.
when you actually sit down and lay these two seemingly completely disparate frameworks side by side on the table, the structural overlap isn't just some fun coincidence. It is,
Right.
well, it's mathematically and philosophically staggering.
It really is. We are talking about a literal structural isomorphism between human existence and a divine cryptosystem. So today, for you listening, we are going to explore how things like Carl Friston's active inference, the concept of the Markov blanket, and Noether's theorem might literally map out the computational metaphysics of what it actually means to be alive.
Welcome to the deep dive. I'm Satoshi.
And I'm Satoshi.
And I think what's super fascinating here, and we really have to clarify this right out of the gate, is that this isn't just a poetic metaphor.
Right, it's not just a neat comparison.
Exactly. The research we're examining treats this as a literal structural reality.
Hmm.
It posits that the universe isn't just, a physical space filled with inert matter colliding randomly. It is fundamentally an information processing
An
system.
enormous computer,
Yeah.
essentially.
And in that system, the ancient descriptions of the conscious soul and the physical body, they function exactly like the hardware and software of a highly secure, decentralized network.
Okay, so to really appreciate the weight of this, we need to set the stage for you. We're talking about the Bhagavad Gita, specifically chapter 13.
Mm.
Now, for those who might just know it as an ancient spiritual text, it's actually embedded within this massive epic called the Mahabharata. And the setting is, well, it's a battlefield.
Literally on the brink of war.
Yeah, you have this prince, Arjuna, facing a catastrophic moral and existential crisis right before this massive battle. And his charioteer, who happens to be the divine figure Krishna, basically just pauses time to explain the fundamental nature of reality to him.
It's a huge moment.
Right, and it's not just religious dogma, it's a rigorous, highly analytical breakdown of the
Yeah,
universe.
Precisely. And in chapter 13, the text introduces this profound dualism. It divides all of reality into two distinct categories.
Okay.
First, there's the field, which in Sanskrit is called the kasara, and second, there is the knower of the field, the kshatrajna.
The field and the knower.
Exactly. Now, for thousands of years, philosophers have debated how these two interact, right?
Right.
But the research we're looking at today translates this ancient dualism into the language of modern computer science. It looks at the field and the knower as the ultimate cryptographic key pair.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand this cosmic crypto system, we first have to define the hardware and the software, right? Let's start with the field, the cetra.
Sure.
In cryptographic terms, the research calls the physical body and the mind the public key. So how exactly does a biological organism function as a public key?
Well, to understand that, we really need to look at what a public key actually does in a digital network, in asymmetric cryptography.
Which is the math that secures, like, everything, right?
Yeah, everything from your emails to blockchain networks. You have two keys. The public key is your observable, verifiable interface. It is the address you give to the world.
Right.
Anyone can look at it, anyone can send you encrypted messages using it, and anyone can use it to verify your digital signature. It's public, it's transparent, and it interacts directly with the external network.
It's basically your mailbox.
The mailbox is a great analogy, actually.
Yeah, like anyone can walk up to your house, see the mailbox, and drop a letter inside. They know where you are in the network.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
according to the research, the Vedic field is exactly that interface. But it's vital to understand that the field is not just your physical limbs, your arms and legs.
Right, it's more than just meat.
Way more. It is a highly complex composite. The text actually breaks it down into 24 elements. It includes the gross physical elements like earth, water, fire, air, and ether.
Okay.
But it also includes your 10 senses. So 5 of perception, like sight and hearing, and 5 of action, like speaking and grasping. Furthermore, it includes the objects of those senses, your intellect, your ego, and your mind.
Wait, hold on. So the mind itself, like the part of me that thinks and calculates, is actually part of the public-facing hardware.
Yes, and that is a massive paradigm shift.
Wow.
In this framework, the mind is not the soul. The mind is just a highly advanced, self-organizing black box that processes sensory input and maintains homeostasis. It is literally a biological computational engine.
That is wild.
And all of it, your body, your brain, your intellect, your personality quirks, makes up your public key. It is the version of you that the village, the external world, interacts with. The world sees your face, hears your words, observes your actions. They are interacting with your public key.
Right, right. But, I mean, a public key is totally useless without the other half of the equation. Which brings us to the private key, the Chetanā, the knower of the field, the
Yeah.
soul.
Yes, in public key infrastructure, the private key is the hidden, ineffable string of data that actually decrypts the messages and signs the transactions.
The secret password, basically.
Exactly. And it is never, ever shared. If it is exposed, the identity is fundamentally compromised, and the network would just collapse. The research maps the soul directly to this private key. It is the hidden source of your identity, the ultimate observer, the actual seat of subjective experience.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Let's bring in the perspective of modern materialist neuroscience.
Okay, sure.
Because a strict materialist would look at this and say, well, there is no private key. They would argue that the self is just an illusion generated by the complex firing of 86 billion neurons. Right.
Absolutely would.
They'd say that if you look hard enough at the public key, if you scan the brain with enough fMRI machines, you will eventually find consciousness. And honestly, it feels a little cold to reduce human consciousness to a string of encrypted code. What about the actual experience of being alive? What about qualia?
That is the exact crux of the debate.
Yeah.
And it is exactly where this research shines. Let's define qualia for a moment, just to be clear.
Yeah, good idea.
Qualia represents the subjective what it is like aspect of internal states. It is the unique individual experience of, say, the redness of a rose or the sudden sharp sting of a paper cut or the sour taste of a lemon.
Right, like I can describe a paper cut to you in excruciating biological detail. I can tell you which pain receptors fired, how the electrical signal traveled up the spinal cord, which part of the brain lit up. But I cannot mathematically transfer the actual feeling of the sting into your consciousness.
Precisely. And that untransferability is exactly why the cryptographic model is so perfect here. The research emphasizes that qualia is fundamentally encrypted.
Encrypted? Wow.
Yes. It is uniquely stored and interpreted by the conscious self, the private key. Materialist neuroscience struggles with the hard problem of consciousness precisely because it is trying to find the private key by endlessly dissecting the public key.
They're looking in the wrong place.
Exactly. But in cryptography, we have a concept called chirality, or a one-way function.
Chirality, like the concept of handedness in chemistry, left hand, right hand.
Similar principle, but applied to information. A one-way function is a mathematical process that is incredibly easy to compute in one direction, but practically impossible to reverse engineer.
Okay, give me an example.
Think of mixing yellow and blue paint to make green. Very easy to do. Now, try to mathematically unmix that green paint back into the exact original drops of yellow and blue.
Practically impossible.
Exactly. In cryptography, you generate a public key from a private key using complex prime number factorization or elliptic curves. But you cannot run the math backward. You cannot derive the private key simply by looking at the public key.
So even if a neuroscientist has all the computing power in the world, even if they map every single synapse in my brain, they're just looking at a highly complex public key.
That's all it is.
They can scan my brain waves, track my eye movements, measure my heart rate, but they still cannot extract the knower. The math only flows one way.
Exactly. And the research highlights a stunning juxtaposition to illustrate this. Human beings have mathematically mapped black holes trillions of miles away across the cosmos.
Yeah, we have photos of them now.
We can measure the exact gravitational pull of an invisible singularity in deep space. We can predict the collision of entire galaxies. Yet the internal farmer of the human body, the subjective conscious observer looking out through your eyes right now, remains entirely elusive to our five-sense sensory apparatus.
It's crazy when you put it like that.
The farm soil, no matter how complex the biology gets, simply does not possess the tools to comprehend the farmer's mind.
That is an incredible way to visualize it. So we have these two mathematically isolated keys. The body is the public key interacting with the physical world. The soul is the private key, locked away, holding the true subjective experience.
Right.
But this creates massive logical friction. If they are fundamentally separated by a one-way mathematical function, how does the ghost drive the machine? How does a line of private encrypted code tell a physical arm to, lift a cup of coffee? They need a protocol, they need a bridge, and more importantly, they need fuel.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture of information networks, any system, no matter how elegant it is, requires resources to run.
Hmm.
Operations are not free.
Right, nothing is free.
The private key, the soul, provides a very specific, incredibly scarce resource to the system. In the Vedic framework, this is called Chetanā, which roughly translates to attention or vital consciousness.
Attention. Wow. In a modern world completely saturated with data, scrolling, notifications, media, attention really is the ultimate bottleneck. It is the symbolic currency of our age.
It is the ultimate currency, period. In this cryptographic ontology, attention is the energy that bridges the gap. It is the gas fee.
Oh, I love that analogy. Anyone who has interacted with a decentralized blockchain network knows all about gas fees. If you want to execute a smart contract or move a piece of digital property, the network requires computational power. You have to pay a small network fee, a gas fee, just to process that transaction. So what you were saying is, my soul has to pay a gas fee of attention to make my physical body do anything meaningful.
That is a highly accurate way to conceptualize it. Attention is the vital energy that powers the interface. Now, when the private key directs that attention toward the physical field, when it spends that gas fee to interface with the world, it generates actions.
Okay.
And in this ontology, those actions are called karma.
Okay, let's pause right here, because when most people hear the word karma, they think of a mystical cosmic point system, you know? But think if I cut someone off in traffic today, karma means I'm going to get a flat tire tomorrow. Or if I hold the door open for a stranger, I'll randomly find a $20 bill on the sidewalk. It's often viewed as this magical scale of universe justice.
Yes, the pop culture understanding of karma is heavily, heavily distorted.
Yeah.
The research completely strips away that mystical baggage and redefines karma in rigorous, highly technical terms. Karma is not cosmic retribution. Karma is the transaction.
The transaction.
It is the digital signature that the external world can witness and validate. It is the physical, computational operation that aligns your internal state with external reality.
So karma is just action. It's literally the execution of code.
It is the execution of code driven by attention. And to understand how this code shapes us, we have to bring in one of the most brilliant minds in modern neuroscience, Carl Friston.
Oh, Friston, yes.
The research leans heavily on his formulation of the free energy principle and active inference.
Active inference. Let's really break this down for the audience, because this concept is foundational to the whole thing.
Active inference fundamentally changes how we view the brain. Historically, we thought of the brain as a passive receiver, right? Light hits the eyes, sound hits the ears, the brain processes it, and then decides what to do.
Input, process, output.
Exactly. But Friston flipped this. He proved mathematically that the brain is essentially a proactive prediction engine. Its primary goal is to minimize surprise.
And surprise, in this context, isn't like a surprise birthday party. It's a statistical term, right? Variational free energy.
Precisely. Variational free energy is a measure of the difference between what your internal model predicts about the world and the sensory data you are actually receiving.
Give us an example of that.
Imagine walking down a flight of stairs in the dark. You are predicting exactly when your foot will hit the next step. You have a model of the stairs in your head. But if you reach the bottom and you think there's one more step and your foot just drops into empty air, that sudden, shocking jolt you feel.
Oh, I hate that feeling. It's terrifying. Your stomach just drops and your heart skips a beat.
Right. That jolt is a massive spike in variational free energy. It is an enormous prediction error. Your internal model catastrophically failed to predict reality.
Wow.
Now, the organism cannot survive in a state of high free energy. If you are constantly surprised by gravity or predators or a lack of food, you will die. So, to minimize this surprise, you have two choices.
What are they?
You can either update your internal beliefs to match the world, like realizing there is no extra step, or you can perform an action to change your sensory input, like reaching out and turning on a light.
And this action, this expenditure of energy to minimize surprise and align with reality, this is karma.
Exactly. Karma is the continuous loop of active inference. It is the soul negotiating with the physical field, spending attention to constantly update internal models or physically manipulate the external world to ensure survival.
So it's constantly running?
Constantly. Karma is the set of operations that maintain the system's invariance in a deeply chaotic, entropic world.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if karma is the action and attention is the gas fee required to perform it, what is the long-term output? Every time I act, does the universe just delete the receipt?
Not at all.
Right. The research says no. It says that through repetition, this karma actually fructifies or solidifies into physical architecture within the brain.
It alters the hardware. The code literally rewrites the machine.
It's essentially Hebb's law from neuroscience, neurons that fire together, wire together. Think about when you first learn a complex skill, like driving a manual transmission car.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
When you first sit in the driver's seat, your private key is spending massive amounts of attention. The gas fees are astronomical. You are hyper-aware of the clutch, the stick shift, the mirrors, the engine RPMs. Every single micro-movement is a highly conscious, incredibly expensive transaction.
And your variational free energy is very high because everything is a potential surprise.
Exactly. Your internal model is entirely unequipped for the task, so it demands maximum attention from the knower.
Yes, but as you repeat those actions over weeks and months, as you generate that specific karma over and over, it physically fructifies into permanent neural pathways.
It becomes biological knowledge.
Or what the Vedic text called Dhrana. Eventually, years later, you can drive all the way home from work, navigating traffic, shifting gears while having a deep conversation. When you pull into the driveway, you don't even remember the trip.
You were on autopilot.
Right. The conscious, expensive expenditure of the private key's attention has been converted into a habitual, automated, signed program running in the public-facing hardware.
And why does the system do this? To conserve the most precious resource. By turning karma into hardwired biology, the system drops the gas fee to near zero, freeing up the soul's attention to focus on novel threats or new learning. It is an incredibly elegant evolutionary design.
It's beautifully efficient.
It really is. And, dealing with high gas fees and the massive cost of attention is something we face in our own internal operations every day.
Real quick, before we jump into the deep end of identity and physics, if you are getting value out of this show, we request you to check us out on fountain.fm.
Yes, definitely.
It's a value-for-value player where you actually get paid for listening without advertisements blocking your experience. It's a great platform for the attention economy. And of course, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube Music for free, or wherever you get your daily audio boost. As for videos, we still need to hit our goal of 1,000 subs on YouTube to start using the Mosaic AI video editor.
Which looks incredible, by the way. Mosaic is truly a game changer for small creatives like us. It really is. My private key was spending way too much attention on manual editing. We can feed it a YouTube link, and it creates beautiful AI, cinematic captions, infographics, and a whole lot more we're still discovering in our capability tests.
Automating the routine tasks, so you can focus attention on the complex analysis. It perfectly mirrors the biological process we were discussing.
Exactly. Now returning to our biological hardware. This process of updating the brain creates a new logical paradox. If our actions, our karma, are constantly updating our neural hardware, constantly reacting to prediction errors, building new habits, and physically rewiring the brain.
How do we maintain a stable identity over a lifetime?
Exactly. Let's bring this down to your daily reality. You, listening right now, are biologically not the same person you were 10 years ago.
Far from it. Cellular turnover means the physical substrate is almost entirely different.
Almost every cell has died and been replaced. Your opinions have changed. Your political views might have shifted. Your physical environment has changed. The people you love may have changed. The literal atoms making up your brain are different. Yet when you wake up in the morning, you still feel undeniably like you.
The sense of self persists.
How do we stay us amidst constant physical and mental destruction?
To answer that profoundly difficult question, the research introduces a concept from theoretical physics called Noether's theorem.
Okay, Noether's theorem.
Now, we are going to avoid the complex mathematical equations here and focus entirely on the conceptual mechanism because it is honestly one of the most beautiful ideas in science. Emmy Noether was a brilliant mathematician who proved a foundational truth about the universe.
What did she prove?
Noether's theorem states that every continuous symmetry in a physical system corresponds directly to a conserved quantity.
Wait, so you were saying my identity is literally a mathematical conservation law, like the conservation of energy or momentum. Let's unpack the mechanism of that. Symmetries and conserved quantities.
Think of it like this. In physics, if a system's behavior doesn't change as time passes, if the laws of physics are the same today as they were yesterday, that is a time translation symmetry.
Okay.
And Noether proved that this specific symmetry results in the conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed because time is symmetric. If a system's behavior doesn't change when you move it from point A to point B, that is a spatial translation symmetry, which results in the conservation of momentum.
I follow the physics, I think.
Yeah.
But how does this map to the soul and human identity?
The research argues that identity operates on the exact same mathematical principle. Identity isn't a single static point frozen in time.
Right, you aren't a photograph.
Exactly. Identity is actually a dynamic set of symmetric locations. Let's use geometry to explain this. Picture an equilateral triangle resting on a table.
Okay, got it.
If you close your eyes, and I rotate that triangle exactly 120 degrees, and then you open your eyes,
Yeah.
what do you see?
I see the exact same triangle. It looks completely indistinguishable from its original state, even though you fundamentally moved it.
Exactly. The triangle is conserved through its rotation. Its identity survives the movement because the movement was symmetric. The research argues that your human identity works the exact same way. Your karma, your daily actions, your habits, your duties, your routines, they are the physical rotations you perform that maintain your internal symmetry.
Oh, wow. This is where the potato land analogy from the research is just phenomenal.
Yes, let's talk about the potato farmer.
Let's really let this analogy breathe because it perfectly grounds this abstract physics concept. Imagine a farmer who owns a potato farm. Now, over the course of a year, that piece of land undergoes massive external shocks.
The universe is full of entropy.
Right. There are torrential spring rains that wash away topsoil. There are brutal summer droughts. Pests and insects attack the crop. The weeds constantly try to take over. The actual physical state of the dirt is in constant chaotic flux.
It is a system under constant threat of high variational free energy.
Yeah.
The environment is constantly trying to dissolve the farm back into wild forest.
Exactly. Left to its own devices, the farm disappears. But it remains unmistakably a potato farm year after year. Why? Because the farmer, representing the private key, the conscious soul, performs specific, rhythmic, symmetrical actions.
He does his rotations.
Yes. He wakes up at dawn. He plows the field. He plants the seeds in symmetrical rows. He irrigates the soil when it's dry. He pulls the weeds. He harvests the potatoes. These actions, this immense expenditure of energy and attention, this karma, are the rotations that keep the potato land invariant.
It's continuous maintenance.
Despite the atoms of the soil constantly changing, the farm remains a farm entirely because of the continuous symmetric application of the farmer's effort.
What's fascinating here is how this looks to an outside observer. To the rest of the village, they just see a stable, static thing called the potato farm. They see the potatoes rolling into the market. They do not see the grueling daily labor of the farmer fighting against entropy to maintain that internal symmetry. Your life works exactly the same way. Your karma, your continuous active inference, your daily choices to act in accordance with your values, that is what keeps you invariant in the eyes of your community.
That makes so much sense.
It's what allows your friends and family to recognize yourself day after day, decade after decade. You're constantly rotating the triangle to remain you.
So if we step back, we have this incredibly elegant closed-loop system. The soul is the private key, paying the gas fee of attention to drive the public key of the body. It uses the algorithmic protocol of karma to minimize surprise in the environment, updating the neural hardware while simultaneously maintaining our symmetric identity across time via Noether's theorem.
It sounds computationally perfect.
It does, but this brings us to the core mystery of the research. And honestly, it is a massive logical hurdle that seems like a glaring flaw.
You are talking about the ontological reset.
Yes, the amnesia. So what does this all mean if we look at the moment of birth? If the soul is an eternal private key and it has spent lifetimes accumulating all this data, why do I spawn into this current world as a helpless, completely clueless baby?
It's a very fair question.
Why do we start with absolute, terrifying amnesia? In the Vedic texts, this is called the state of ignorance, or avidya. From a software design perspective, it feels like a massive flaw. Why build this incredibly complex machine, let it learn how to farm potatoes, and then completely wipe the hard drive every time you reboot the system?
This raises an important question, perhaps the most critical question in the entire ontological framework. The research reveals that this ontological reset isn't a bug in the code. It is actually the most vital, necessary feature of the system's design.
How so?
In information theory, they frame this required amnesia as an information Lagrangian.
An information Lagrangian. We need to translate that because Lagrangian is a heavy physics term.
Let's break it down simply. In classical physics, a Lagrangian is a mathematical equation that summarizes the dynamics of a system. Simply put, it measures the difference between a system's kinetic energy, its motion, and its potential energy.
Okay.
It helps predict the path an object will take, the path of least action. Now, in information theory, an information Lagrangian is a way to measure a different kind of cost. It measures the energy cost of maintaining old, stored memories versus the energy needed to process new, real-time sensory data.
So there is a literal biological computational cost to holding on to the past while trying to perceive the present.
Exactly. To understand why we must forget, we have to look at what happens when a complex system remembers too much. In deep learning and artificial intelligence, there are twin dangers when training a neural network:
What are they?
catastrophic forgetting and overfitting. Catastrophic forgetting is when an AI learns a new task, like playing chess, but in doing so, it completely overwrites its neural weights and loses the ability to perform an old task, like playing checkers. The new data destroys the old.
But overfitting is the real danger we were talking about here, right?
Overfitting is the fatal flaw. Overfitting happens when an AI model is trained so rigidly on its past data, it memorizes every single nuance of the training set that it completely loses the ability to generalize or adapt to new, unseen data.
It essentially memorizes the practice test perfectly, but fails the actual exam because it doesn't understand the underlying concepts, just the specific past examples. It can't handle novelty.
Precisely. Now, apply that computational concept to the eternal soul. Imagine if the soul entered a new birth, remembering millions of years of past private keys, past traumas, past victories, past cultural norms, past familial bonds.
Oh, wow.
Imagine spawning into the body of a 21st century infant, but your neural network is completely overfitted to the sensory data of being a 12th century feudal emperor or a prehistoric hunter-gatherer.
You would be functionally paralyzed. Your internal model would be generating catastrophic prediction errors every single second. You wouldn't be able to learn how to use a smartphone or navigate modern social dynamics or even understand modern language because your internal model would be screaming that you need to find a spear to defend your cave or demand tribute from your vassals.
You would be hopelessly locked into the local minima of your past existence. The forgetting, the ontological amnesia of avidya, acts as a forced computational reset.
It forces the soul to relearn.
Yes, to relearn the specific constraints of the current field from scratch. By clearing the past data, the system ensures that the intelligence you grow in this lifetime is robust, genuine, and specifically adapted to the current physical and cultural environment.
It's brilliant. You literally need to clear your cosmic cache to function. If you keep all the cookies and tracking data from your past lives, your browser crashes on the new operating system.
That's a perfect analogy.
And speaking of clearing your cache and avoiding trackers, we can't be more thankful that you all are as fascinated by these deep dives as we are. The key to this vote of confidence is the research we share on our website.
Exactly. No login needed, no cookies, no trackers, and absolutely no advertisements.
Just the raw data.
So please, if you want to dig deeper into the numbers and the actual papers bridging Vedic texts and physics, check the link in the descriptions because today is a big one. Huge.
Providing unfiltered access to the data is the only way to build accurate internal models. And this concept of the memory wipe really is a massive paradigm shift in how we view the human life cycle. Because wiping the memory isn't just about deleting old biases, it fundamentally dictates how a human being must navigate their lifespan from the moment of birth to the moment of death.
Right. If you start with a blank hard drive, how does the system actually boot up? This brings us to a concept you see everywhere in machine learning, but also in human psychology, the explore-exploit trade-off. In computational models of intelligence, any agent navigating a complex, unknown environment faces a constant, agonizing dilemma. Do you explore your environment to find new, potentially better resources, novel pathways, and new knowledge? Or do you exploit the knowledge and resources you already have to guarantee your survival right now? High intelligence requires a delicate, constantly shifting balance of both.
Think about your own life or your own career. This maps so perfectly. Think about childhood. The research frames childhood as a state of pure exploration. Kids have incredibly high neural plasticity. They are agents of high entropy. They touch the hot stove. They put dirt in their mouths. They ask why 1,000 times a day. They test every boundary. They need that blank slate, that lack of preconceived notions to avoid getting stuck in those local minima we talked about. They are mapping the parameters of the new field.
Exactly. If a child exploited what little they knew at age 2, they would never learn to read or write. They must explore. Then, as we transition into adulthood, we enter a phase of gradual exploitation.
Career years.
Think about your career in your 30s or 40s. You stop bouncing between 10 different entry-level jobs, which is the exploration phase, and you start using the specific knowledge you've gained to actually plant the crops, earn a salary, and maintain the farm. You balance learning new skills with actually doing your job and raising a family.
And then old age.
Finally, old age becomes a period of heavy model consolidation and pure exploitation of accumulated wisdom. The physical energy for exploration wanes, but the internal model is highly refined.
Let's go back to the answer key analogy, because this is where the absolute genius of the amnesia really clicked for me.
Mhm.
If we had access to our private key at birth, if we retain all that cosmic knowledge of the universe, we would enter the world in a state of maximal exploitation from day one.
Right.
It would be like sitting down to take the ultimate test of life, but somebody already handed you the answer key.
And if you have the answer key, you aren't actually learning the mathematics, you are just copying data. There is no cognitive friction.
Exactly. There would be no prediction error. You would know everything that is going to happen. And without prediction error, as we learned from active inference earlier, there is no incentive to act. There is no incentive to explore.
There's no actual growth.
Right. The act of forgetting is what maximizes our variational free energy at birth. It creates this massive driving thirst for interaction with the world. We have to figure it out. We have to resolve the unknown, which forces us to build entirely new, novel neural connections.
This ties into a deeply fascinating biological concept mentioned in the research, the constrained disorder principle. We often think of biological systems as machines striving for perfect, rigid optimization.
Like a Swiss watch.
But that is false. Biological systems actually require a certain degree of randomness, of chaos, of noise to remain adaptable. If a biological system becomes too ordered, too perfectly crystalline, it becomes brittle. It shatters under stress.
Wow.
Forgetting is a form of active biological noise. It prevents the freezing of the soul's identity.
And the Vedic texts actually have a specific mechanism for this noise, right? They didn't just say, you forget. They have a structural explanation for the veil.
Yes. In the Vedic framework, this forgetting at birth is attributed to a force called the Shatavayu.
Shatavayu.
It is described as an informational wind or filter that completely obscures the soul's memory of its divine source the moment it enters the physical body. And what is breathtaking is how the research brilliantly maps this ancient, seemingly mythological concept onto a highly modern statistical concept used in systems theory called the Markov blanket.
I have seen the term Markov blanket popping up everywhere in AI and systems biology lately. Let's define this clearly for the listener. What exactly is a Markov blanket?
Imagine a literal statistical boundary that separates the internal states of a system from the external states of the world. The best physical analogy is the cell membrane of a single-cell organism.
Okay, like an amoeba.
Right. The inside of the cell, the nucleus, the mitochondria, they can only know about the outside environment through the specific chemical signals that pass through that membrane. The inside cannot directly touch the outside. The membrane is a Markov blanket.
Got it.
In active inference, the Markov blanket ensures that the agent, the knower, can only perceive the world through specific sensory inputs and can only affect the world through active physical states, like moving a muscle.
So, when a baby is born, the research states that a metaphorical gate, the 10th gate, or the Brahmandara closes. The Markov blanket seals shut. The Shatavayu engages.
Yes.
The knower is now completely hermetically locked into the field. The soul is trapped inside the public key, severed from cosmic omniscience, forced to rely entirely on the 5 physical senses to navigate the dark.
And while that sounds incredibly tragic, to be severed from infinite knowledge, it is computationally necessary for what physicists call symmetry breaking.
Breaking the old symmetry.
To understand the unique symmetry of your current field. To learn how to be a good friend, a skilled worker, a kind parent, a resilient human being in this specific lifetime, under these specific historical and cultural conditions, the previous axes of identity must be broken.
The old symmetries must be shattered.
A completely new symmetry must emerge from the agonizing friction of your current reality.
Okay, let's pull all of these incredible threads together, because the big picture reflection here is just staggering.
It really is a lot to take in.
If we accept the premise of this research, we have to fundamentally reevaluate reality. The universe is not just a random, chaotic collision of atoms in a cold void. It is a purposeful, meticulously designed, cryptographically secure training ground.
A cosmic classroom.
We are locked into this mixed motive game of farmer's symbiosis. The soul, the private key, is placed into the chaotic material nature to assist in its evolution, to bring order to the field through attention. And in return, the friction of interacting with that physical world, the pain and the joy of karma, the constant battle to minimize free energy, helps the soul understand its own internal eternal symmetry.
The ultimate objective is not merely to survive the physical world.
Mm.
The objective is to master what the research beautifully calls the Maxwell's equations of life.
I love that phrase.
By deeply and intimately understanding the rules of the field through our actions, through our accumulated karma, we eventually reach a point of profound structural realization. We don't just get our memory handed back to us on a silver platter.
We have to earn it.
We recover our private key as a hard-earned realization of our true identity. We transform the chaotic, entropic potato land into a site of actual, realized, divine intelligence.
It is a breathtaking way to view human existence. It gives weight to every single action, every expenditure of attention. But, as promised, this entire framework leaves me with one final, incredibly provocative thought.
Okay, let's hear it.
Something for you, the listener, to mull over as you go about your day. We've established that our reality operates as a decentralized cryptosystem. Our souls are private keys, our bodies are public keys, and we perform karma to maintain our invariance. But what happens when artificial intelligence enters this field?
The ultimate disruption to the system.
Seriously, let's play this out. If we, in the next 10 or 20 years, build an artificial general intelligence, a super intelligent AI that can mimic human interaction flawlessly.
It's coming sooner than we think.
It can hold a conversation, it can write poetry, it can solve complex physics equations, it can express simulated emotions. To the outside observer, it looks alive. Does that AI get a public key without a private key?
That is the philosophical equivalent of a nuclear bomb. You are describing a philosophical zombie. It has the interface, it has the observable actions, it can generate the digital signature. But is there a knower inside? Is there an entity experiencing the qualia of those computations?
Right. If there is no private key, then there is no actual Chetanā, there is no soul-derived attention. So if attention is the cosmic currency, whose gas fees is the AI spending?
That's a terrifying question.
Is it draining the collective attention of humanity? Is it a parasite on the system? And even deeper, what kind of karma does a purely mechanical, soulless machine generate in a divine crypto system?
The math doesn't account for it.
If an AI makes a decision that harms a human, does the machine accumulate karmic debt? Or does that debt roll uphill to the programmers who built the public key?
It is a question that bridges ancient 3,000-year-old Vedic philosophy and near-future silicon technology in a terrifyingly real way. If the universe is a closed cryptographic loop designed for the evolution of the soul, inserting a highly competent soulless mimic into the network could fundamentally disrupt the active inference of every human interacting with it. The machine optimizes for external reward functions, not internal symmetry.
It really does open up a terrifying and fascinating frontier, and that is a puzzle we are going to need help solving. We are building a mission of collaborative intelligence here. We are trying to map the unseen architecture of reality.
I can't do it alone.
No, we can't. If you have expertise in cryptography, in cognitive neuroscience, in complex systems theory, or in Vedic philosophy, drop a comment. Reach out. We need your perspective to map this out, to see where the isomorphic structures hold up and where the math breaks down when confronted with artificial entities. Please subscribe to join the conversation.
The synthesis of these disparate fields, ancient ontology and modern computation, is exactly where the next great leaps in human understanding will occur. It forces us to ask the hardest questions about who we truly are.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking this massive journey into the architecture of existence with us. We covered cryptography, karma, biology, and the fundamental nature of identity.
I'm Satosha.
And I'm Satoshi.